Thank you so much, Verena. And yes, my surname is Hodgson. It's quite a mouthful, so I don't expect you to get that right. Thank you for the introduction. And I've been involved in the mentoring and coaching field for the past 15 years. And I'm also involved in entrepreneurship and running a family business. But I found mentoring by chance, and I saw the impact that it had on people's lives. And I was like, wow, this is something that is so powerful that I want to be involved with it. And so I slowly became more and more involved in helping set up mentoring programs globally. And it's really been my passion and my heart and my purpose. So I'm hoping to share some of that with you today and hope that you can feel the energy of mentoring and that after today, you will all want to be involved in it in various ways. So I'd love all of you just for a minute to put on your cameras so I can just see your beautiful faces. I just want to see you because sometimes I feel as though I'm not talking to anyone. I can see Stephen. Thank you. There we go. Hello. Wonderful. It's lovely to see your faces. Otherwise, I can't see who I'm talking to. Wonderful. Thank you. So lovely to see all of you. And we've got 2 breakout rooms today, so you're going to be interacting with some of your colleagues, and it's going to be great to meet some people that maybe you haven't met before and have really rich conversations. And then we'll also be using the chat box. Now, don't be afraid to ask me any questions. I'm completely open to questions. And no question is too silly or too stupid. If you've got that question, someone else has got that same question. So do them a favor by asking it. And you can do that by popping it in the chat box or putting your hand up or getting yourself on camera and just saying, excuse me, I've got a question. So let's get started. Let's get the mentoring conversation going. So we're going to talk about the benefits of mentoring and what it is and really understand or come onto the same page of how we understand mentoring to be. So the intended takeaways today, 4 things. We've all been involved in mentoring in some way, whether you've had as a child, whether you've had a teacher as a mentor, or maybe a parent or an aunt or an uncle, or at university or at college, or you've got a mentor now, or you are a mentor. We've had informal mentoring our whole life. But let's really get on the same page and make sure we understand what it is all about. We're going to look at the benefits and challenges of it. Some pillars that make your relationship successful, and then your roles. What is expected of a mentor and mentee? So while I'm busy chatting, if you could think and put in the chat box, if you just pop onto your screen, you'll see your chat either at the top or the bottom. And just pop in that chat box what you would like to learn today. Why are you here? Why did you show up today? And why have you made 1 hour, an hour and a half of your day dedicated to mentoring? So what would you like to learn today? It also helps me just see what you would like to learn and if I need to weave something in that I haven't. So you can just fill that in while I'm chatting. So let's understand what mentoring is. And I'm going to start by telling you a short story. So imagine a senior pastor or minister. He noticed a young minister in training really struggling to balance his studies, his family life, his new ministry that he was learning about. And you could see is really taking a lot of strain. So instead of just going up and telling him what to do, she invited him to tea. to come and visit. And they sat down and she listened to his challenges. She shared how once she faced something very similar that he's facing, trying to juggle all these things. And she helped him by asking him questions and getting him to think about what mattered most for him. And they met a few times, and over time, their conversations gave the young minister the confidence and direction to know what to do and how to balance certain things in his life and how to focus on what his priorities were. So in hearing that story, what is happening? What is happening in the story? And what makes this relationship mentoring? So pop in the chat box. I know you've already been popping things in the chat box. What is happening? What do you think is happening there? What makes it mentoring? Why do you think that is a mentoring relationship? What makes it mentoring? That they're meeting, she's listening, she's sharing. What makes that mentoring? Any ideas? Pop that in the chat box. So what you may have heard is that you may have heard that it was her listening to him. You might have heard that it was her sharing wisdom. There we go. We got Christopher coming in. Friendship. That's great. Thank you, Christopher. And Martha, Margaret, sharing of life. So she's sharing her stories with him. As Irene says, sharing her ideas, sharing her experience, her wisdom, and the journey she went on. And Adriana, I like that, accountability. And Emily, the fact that it was her growing in confidence, yes, and a partnership, absolutely. It's a partnership. There's no hierarchy there. It's a real partnership there. And those are all words that come to mind when you think of mentoring. Other words, supporting, guiding. It's all about the relationship. They were building that relationship, building that rapport, building that trust. So this is what mentoring is about. Everything that you've put down there and that we've shared as well. Sustainability, thank you. Relationship and connectedness. Absolutely. Feeling that connectedness. So mentoring is really a relationship that is built on trust and care. And it's so important that we spend the time on building that rapport, building that trust, because if you've built that trust, then what happens is that you can have the really deep conversations that you need in mentoring. If you haven't built that trust, people are going to be very scared to share and open up and be completely honest with what they want to share with you. So take that time to build that rapport and that trust. It also helps a person to grow through shared experience. The mentor is going to share their experience. And it's all about reflection on both sides, reflection for the mentor and also reflection for the mentee. So it's not about the mentor standing above, I know everything and I'm now going to impart all my wisdom onto you. It's someone who's going to guide you, who's going to walk alongside you on your journey of discovery and of setting your goals and reaching your goals. So there's so many different ways we can describe mentoring and different descriptions. But what I like to do is put it into 3 clear things. It's all about mutual learning and trust. I spoke to you about trust. You have to build that in order to have the deep conversations. And you may see mutual learning and say, well, what is the mentor going to get out of it? Surely it's only the mentee learning. The mentor learns as much as the mentee. And that's what is so amazing about mentoring. And you're going to be discussing this when we look at the benefits of mentoring. It's all about the mentor exploring the mentee's thinking. So it's not only about the mentor talking the mentor talks only about in a mentoring conversation about 20% of the time. The mentor is asking questions, being infinitely curious and exploring the mentee's thinking. What do you think? What do you think you should be doing? What do you think the possibilities are? And stretching their thinking. And then it's about sharing their wisdom, sharing their experience with their mentee. So the mentee may ask for advice. They're there because they want to learn from you. You have walked in the path that they are looking at walking. So I like to think of mentoring as igniting a spark in a person, to help a mentee have insights, to see things differently, to stretch their thinking. And just one conversation, if it's the right one, can really light up someone's path, and it can transform their life. And I've heard beautiful stories about that. So we know what mentoring is. You've contributed in the chat box. We understand what mentoring is. So how is it going to benefit the mentor? And how is it really going to benefit the mentee? And then what are the challenges that you're going to face along the way? And, it's not all going to be smooth sailing all the way. There's going to be some challenges. However, if you know the challenges up front, you'll be prepared for them and you'll be able to overcome them. Welcome back. I hope you had some great chats. Florence, you got a big smile on your face. So you look as though you had a wonderful chat in your room. And sorry, some of you were in and out of rooms, but I hope you all had a chance to have some very constructive and valuable conversations. So anyone want to share? A leader could share, or you could put it in the chat box. Some kind of key insight or something that you learned or something that came up in your discussions. Would anyone like to share something?
I would like to share.
Yes, Beatrice.
So from our group, a question came up on, can anybody mentor anybody? What if the chemistry does not work and you just keep trying and trying and trying? And then on the other part of the question, something interesting also came up on overdependence. Mentees tend to take the relationship into an instruction kind of, and they tend to over rely on the mentor to run their personal lives. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Beatrice. What wonderful questions and things that came up. So I'm going to answer those very quickly. And I see Helena's got her hand up. And you can also put things in the chat box. So can anyone mentor anyone? We informally, we sort of mentor each other all the time, don't we? We mentor our colleagues, we mentor our children, we are mentors, mentees to other people. So if you've got experience in something that the other person is needing, some wisdom, guidance, or experience share with, that is a form of mentoring. So it depends on if it's informal mentoring or if it's a formal mentoring relationship. So you can get peer mentoring where you both, just sharing, and you can both be mentors to each other. And then you get mentors who have got a lot more experience. So basically, sort of, yes, informally, everyone can mentor anyone else. What happens if there's no chemistry? And as you said, Beatrice, you try and try and try. That's when, if you are in a mentoring program, you need to go to the program manager and say, this actually isn't working. Don't expect fireworks on the first meeting. Sometimes you may think, oh, this person isn't, I don't know if I'm going to connect with them. But it's maybe you just haven't spent enough time getting to know each other. And you don't have to become best friends. That's not what mentors, they don't need to be your best friend. It needs to be someone you can learn from. So give it some time to build that relationship. But if there really isn't any chemistry and you just really can't have this relationship with this person, then you need to go back to your program manager and saying it's not working, and then they will do a rematch for you. Overdependence is a factor in some mentoring relationships, especially if maybe the person's much younger and they see their mentor having a lot of experience and they're really hanging on to getting advice from them. So it's really up to the mentor to put in some boundaries and say, firstly, you can't contact me any time of the day. And say, these are the times you can contact me. So putting in those kind of boundaries, and then also putting in boundaries of how involved you get. I can share things with you. You can take it if you want and listen, but I'm not going to tell you what to do, and I'm not going to instruct you all the way. And also for the mentor to turn it and say, if they get asked the question, what would you do? So starting to empower the mentee to do their own thinking so that they're not relying on the mentor to do all the thinking for them. Hope that helps a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you, Beatrice.
Okay.
Helena, did you have your hand up there?
Yes,
earlier?
please.
Yes, please.
The challenge that was raised was if the mentee is busier than the mentor, and if the age difference or gap is wide, if the mentee is older than the mentor, what do you do? These are the two challenges that was raised in my group. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So if the mentee is busier than the mentor, so you're saying that the mentor's got lots of time, but then they're finding it hard to track down the mentee because they're so busy that they maybe keep on canceling meetings and they're keeping on saying, oh, I can't make this. Am I getting it right? You are nodding.
Yes, please.
Yes. So that's when you really need to, and we're going to be discussing roles and expectations. That's where you need to be setting up a contract and discussing roles and expectations right in the beginning. That it's up to the mentee to drive the relationship and to take ownership of their own learning. So they're the ones who have to set up the meetings. They're the ones who are going to have to check in with the mentor when they're available. It's not for the mentor to run around after the mentee. So the mentee needs to know right off from the first meeting that is their responsibility, that they drive the relationship and they take ownership of their learning. If the mentee keeps on canceling meetings, keeps on saying they're not available, you need to have an open conversation about it. And the mentor needs to say, look, I've noticed you canceling meetings all the time. What is going on? So asking that question, not assuming and judging first, and then to say, are you prepared to carry on with this relationship? Because it's actually not working for me if you keep on canceling it. So once again, the mentor's putting in the boundaries. So if the mentee's busy, that's their problem. This is the relationship. This is the journey they wanted. The mentor is giving up their time. So the mentee needs to fit in with the mentor. The other one where you said the mentee is older than the mentor, that absolutely can happen. And we're seeing that more and more, especially with technology and AI and all of that coming into place, where the you said the mentee is older than the mentor. Sorry, I'm talking about reverse mentoring. Where the mentee is older than the mentor, that is absolutely fine. If they have got, that's what I'm talking about, sorry, reverse mentoring. So the mentee is older, they're needing to learn from the mentor who is younger. And it's usually the other way around, but it's what we call almost like reverse mentoring. That if you Google it, reverse mentoring, you'll find that that's what it is. And it's usually someone who is needing to maybe know how are the younger generation thinking now? How do I create my sermons that are going to appeal to a younger generation? And so you're needing a younger mentee to give you that information, because that's how you're going to remain relevant. So what happens with reverse mentoring? It takes a slightly different format, where you actually do mentoring around topics. So usually the mentee comes in who is slightly older and says, I'm wanting to learn about XYZ. And they put that on the table. They say to the mentor, this is what I'm going to be asking about. And then what you find in reverse mentoring, the mentor actually does a lot more talking and sharing. And then saying to the mentee, how can you apply this in your life, and having a much more equal discussion. So it changes slightly with the reverse mentoring because you've got that older mentee. I hope that helps. I can send some information to Verena on reverse mentoring because I've got quite a bit on it, and she can maybe share it with all of you. Okay. So thank you for those valuable questions. I want to get on because I do want to honor your time and not run over at all. So you were discussing the benefits, and maybe some of what I share now will, clarify or maybe answer some other questions that you may have. So the mentee, what are the benefits of being a mentee? Well, it's all about learning, isn't it? You're going to be learning from the mentor. And it's an intense learning opportunity. And the mentee is going to need to be prepared to be positively challenged, because that's how they see the bigger picture. That's how they get their vision stretched and their goals stretched, and they're held accountable. It's also all about self-awareness. So because they're going to be asked a lot of questions by the mentor, who's going to be very curious and asking the mentee to really dig deep and think broader, they're going to be learning a lot more about themselves. So maybe uncovering some blind spots for them, and creating that greater self-awareness. And then clarity and reflection. So the mentee really gains greater clarity on the goals they want to achieve, the career development, any issues they're going to be working towards, a lot more time on reflecting about them. And the mentor's going to encourage them to spend that time in reflection and reflecting on what they really want out of this mentoring relationship and out of life. The mentee gets the opportunity to have someone who's a sounding board. And not many of us have someone who's a sounding board. Not many of us have a person who just will be there and listen to us, and we can bounce our ideas off them. Because a lot of people want to do the talking and they don't allow us to talk. And in this space, as a mentee, you do a lot of the talking. So you can bounce some ideas off this person and just reflect on those ideas that you're thinking. You have got access to experience. You usually are matched with a mentor who has the experience that you are seeking to learn. So they've walked a path you want to walk. Advice. So you can ask them for advice. Absolutely. In a mentoring relationship, you can ask them for advice, but it needs to be done carefully. Remember that the mentor has had a different experience. They've had a slightly different journey from you. They may think differently to you. So if you ask them for advice, think about the advice and whether it is relevant for you to follow. And their advice should not be, you should do this. It should be, if this was me, this is what I would do. You don't need to take their advice, but they will probably ask you a lot more questions before giving you advice, just to make sure that they are giving you the right advice. So advice can be dangerous, because if it's a wrong advice and you follow it, you could be doing the wrong thing. So be very cautious with advice, but you can ask it. And then networks. Mentees, don't expect your mentor, to open up their network to you. However, if you've built the trust and if you've built the relationship, and the mentor really feels as though someone in their network would benefit, you would benefit from meeting someone in their network, they may open up their network to you. So you may have access to the mentor's network, but it's not expectation that you should go into your mentoring relationship with. They'll only open that up if they really trust you. So spend time on building that trust first. And then what about the mentors? Same learning. Giving back is usually one of the biggest things about mentoring. A lot of mentors, you say, why are you doing this? And they say, it's that, I want to give back. I want to give back what I've learned. I want to help develop people, and that's what I want to do. So, and it's very rewarding. So you feel a sense of pride in your mentee, and it's very rewarding for you, and you get great comfort and joy seeing the mentee succeed and achieve their goals. For you as a mentor, there's also a lot of self-awareness. So you're going to be doing a lot of reflection. I've got there at the bottom of your journey and your life. And through that reflection comes a lot more self-awareness and self-curiosity, things that you're going to learn about yourself. You're going to definitely enhance your conversation skills. You're going to practice good listening skills, which are always good. Curiosity, asking open questions, asking powerful questions, giving feedback. These are all great skills. Reflecting, summarizing, and these are skills, conversation skills that you're going to use in all aspects of your life. And then also you may also get access to the mentees network, where you'll be meeting some of the mentees network if you've built up that trust and if you feel comfortable.
Catherine, I have a question.
Yes, please.
How about the African culture that connects wisdom to age? I have that in the chat box.
Yes, okay. So it's so interesting you asked that, because I'm busy doing a whole lot of workshops in Asia as well. And we've got exactly the same thing, where we've got this age and this hierarchy that makes mentoring a little bit more difficult. So if you say you've got a younger mentor and you don't think, oh, they've got the wisdom, that becomes a big thing in African culture, in an Asian culture. So that's why when it comes to reverse mentoring, it needs to be done slightly differently, which I will share those things with you. And I think it's also good to have a conversation right in the beginning, in that first meeting, for you to actually address it, to say, look, maybe young, and not very old, so you might not think I've necessarily got the wisdom, but I have got some experience in this, and I'd love to share some of this experience with you. So I'm not sure how else to answer that, to be honest. So I'm not sure if anyone else has got something to contribute to that. And if you do, please do talk up about that. Anyone wanting to share anything on that? Okay, hopefully that helped a little bit. Yes, I've got one hand up. There we go.
Okay, like question was actually shared in our group. The question was shared in our group, and I said, which I want to still repeat here, it's quite challenging. Humility on the part of the men. Okay. Am I still connected?
Humility. I'm barely
Humility
hearing you. You're very soft.
Okay, thank you. Humility on the part of the mentor is very
Yes,
important.
humility. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. If the mentor is harsh because he feels he's younger, then he will not get the older mentee listen to him. So the older one needs humility from the younger one. No matter what you have, they want your humility to prove to them that they can learn after you. So that's what I can say.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. And I love what Esther also said in the chat box there, that age should not be a factor. They come to the same level. So, it's very hard. And I know when we talk about developmental mentoring, where you come into a mentoring relationship and you remove hierarchy and you come in with both prepared to learn from each other, that it's actually mutual learning, and there's mutual respect for each other. It doesn't always work in all cultures. It's very easy for me to say that in maybe a European culture, but like that doesn't go down in an Asian culture. There's still that hierarchy. So in an African culture, there may still be that hierarchies, but I think that coming in and saying, I love what you said about the humility, that, we're both here to learn. And, I don't know everything. I'm not expecting you to know everything, but I think we're going to have some great conversations, and I think we're going to both learn from each other. So thank you. Thank you. We're having wonderful conversations here.
There's also the fear that in admitting that for an older person to admit that they do not know is like limiting them or making them to be less respected, something like that. I think that could be a challenge. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But maybe saying I may not have all the answers at my fingertips right now, but I can find out for you. If I don't know something, I'm not going to make it up, and I will go and find out for you. But I will help you and share my knowledge with you and what I know. So I think that's also showing humility as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'll just go through these challenges, and then we want to get onto the roles and expectations. So some of the challenges which are coming up. So let's just put them on the table and run through a few of the things. So the time and commitment, we already came to that when the mentee is so busy. So sessions may get postponed, and what happens is that trust is lost. When you start cancelling, and momentum's lost. And so you need to have those conversations. What is happening? And it may be that a big project has come up for one of you, and all of a sudden your schedule's not as open as it used to be, but have those conversations. The mentor, we need to know what their roles and expectations are, and that there's no dependency. And that's what we're going to be discussing shortly in our next short breakout. Power and hierarchy can come into place where the mentor feels as though they are at a higher level, they are more dominant. What happens is that it really limits the learning and it limits the openness. So coming up, both saying, this is a confidential environment and we're going to share openly and we're going to share on an equal level. So even if the other person is in a much more senior role. Confidentiality and trust. So any breach of confidentiality is going to be a real no-no. It's going to break the relationship down. And we have to make sure that you ensure that you talk about confidentiality and what it means, and that you build that trust so that the mentee is as open and honest and can share freely. We talked about the fit and the chemistry. Even with the fit and the chemistry, sometimes it doesn't work. Values may clash. You may just find it doesn't work. This just reduces the impact of the effectiveness of the relationship. And what you'll find is that you'll get drop-offs. So you need to contact the program manager as soon as it starts happening and don't let that linger. I'm taking ownership. So really important that the mentee takes the ownership and drives the relationship and prepares for the meeting. So otherwise the mentor feels as though they're chasing them, that they have to set everything up. The mentee needs to respect that the mentor's giving up their time for them. And it's also less successful when the mentee doesn't do the prep. So for the mentor to hold the mentee responsible to prepare for the meetings. You need some structure. If you don't have any structure, it ends up being a chit-chat. And you don't set goals, you don't achieve anything, and you both walk away feeling slightly dissatisfied. So you need to have some direction so that you can also measure the success of your relationship. Communication skills. So you need to also discuss how you like to be communicated with. So you may find that a discussion needs to be had about feedback. How do you like receiving feedback? This is how I like receiving feedback. Get on the same page to understand the other person. One person may be more direct or more formal, and the other person less formal. So be aware of that. And if the person is a little bit more formal, you could have a discussion about, but that is a challenge and it could affect your relationship as well. So be aware of the ways that you communicate and what you can do a little bit better. So an open conversation about what's working for you and what's working for the other person and what needs to change. What can I do better? And this is what would help me as well. Feedback. If the mentor avoids giving constructive feedback, then the mentee's not going to learn. The mentee also needs to be open to feedback and open to be challenged. So that's also a conversation that you need to have. Otherwise, the relationship can become quite superficial. And you're also not getting feedback on how successful this relationship is. You may think it's great. The other person may think it's a terrible relationship. So you need to be giving feedback to each other, and the mentee does need to be challenged. A relationship group. After a while, after a few sessions, you may find that it feels as though it's getting a bit stale, that you're not really getting anywhere, or that your relationship, you haven't really clicked, and the relationship remains superficial, the surface level conversations, not deep conversations. So that's where you have to have a chat about your relationship. How would you rate our relationship on a scale of 1 to 10? What can I do more of? What can you do more of? How can we improve it? A couple more things. Cultural and generational differences. These are going to come up. It may be a misunderstanding of another person's culture. So I would have a conversation about, I'm a different culture to you. This is, or if you find someone saying something inappropriate, for you to feel as though you can have that conversation to say, in my culture, that's, it's not really appropriate. And have that discussion. Is there anything that I need to know about your culture in order to make you feel comfortable and for us to build a deeper relationship? Otherwise, it could make the other person feel disrespected or misunderstood, which can erode trust. Over dependence, we talked about that. Beatrice, I think you brought that up, over dependence or under engagement. So when the mentee relies too heavily on the mentor, so setting boundaries and making sure that the mentee knows what the role is of a mentor and what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. And then lastly, endings and transitions. So it challenges if you don't end the relationship and the journey properly, your mentee may feel as though you're their mentor for life and you're always available. You have to make sure your mentoring relationship comes to an end and that you define how you want to go ahead in the future and what your relationship is going forward. It may be no relationship at all, but it may be that you're now friends and you may want to connect every 6 months or something to check in. But if you don't close it properly, both of you will feel slightly dissatisfied. And even if the journey was very successful for both of you, research has shown that both of you will feel that the journey was not as successful as it was. So really important to end it, and then what's the transition? So hopefully that, some of these things came up, I know, in your discussions. Maybe there's some more food for thought. So what really makes a successful relationship? 3 pillars holding up a successful relationship, which is clarity, trust, and commitment. And if one of them is weak, that whole structure wobbles. So, what do we mean by clarity? So clarity, it's all about setting goals, having shared goals, knowing what your roles are and what you expect from each other, early conversations on what the purpose is of this mentoring relationship, putting in those boundaries, as I've discussed before, and then discussing that power, that hierarchy, cultural differences. So it's very clear from the beginning what this relationship is about so that you can avoid some of those challenges and you can start building that pillar of clarity. Then what about trust, confidentiality? So without confidentiality, this relationship is not going to be built at all. And it has to be stressed at the beginning of the meeting and at the end of the meeting. This is a confidential conversation. And at the end, a reminder about confidentiality, because that's when you can both share deeply and confidently. Mutual respect and openness, and that you both realize that you're both going to learn from each other. And spending that time building that rapport and trust. Right in the beginning, don't dive straight into the issues and the challenges. spend that first meeting getting to know each other and building that rapport. And then commitment. This is a commitment on both sides. And you have to, when you sign up for this, I'm all in. I'm not half in, I'm all in. So respecting each other's time and putting in the effort. So mentees, it's putting in that prep. Mentors, it's making yourself available to be the mentor for your mentee, giving each other feedback, regular check-ins, and then the plan closure, as I've discussed before. And that other one, which is embracing a growth mindset, that they come in with a very open mind, and being prepared to learn. So I've got a few things there. Humility and listening skills. Great. Thank you, Martha. And Hannah, having learnable spirit. I love that. And Helen, a scope of mentorship should be clarified from the beginning. Absolutely. To discuss what the objective is and what you're trying to do. So wrapping up, we've come to the end of our webinar. I know that Verena has got a closing for you as well, but my closing is this beautiful quote from Maya Angelou, which is, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that it's so important. When I've said to you, think of a mentor or person who's influenced in your life, and how did they make you feel? So you often don't remember what you learned from them, but you do remember that beautiful feeling you had inside and how they made you feel when you met them, how important you made them feel. So I'll leave you with that. In the chat box, I would love to hear a key takeaway or insight that you may have had today, anything that you learned. And I'm happy to stay on to answer any questions. Anyone who wants to stay and ask me a question, please feel free to do that. So thank you, and thank you for having me, Verena.